So, hello again. My name is Jacek Boruc and I'm happy to see you all today. I want to start by telling you about my, I believe, successful journey for knowledge. The goal was the standard classification system. In the beginning, I have to mark that today I'm here in the majority as representative of buildingSMART Poland, not a Warbud or Vinci group. But I will start from the deep past when I began work in technical office in Warbud. It was 2006 when we started creating the first CRM platform. Of course, one of the challenges was deciding on a classification system. But in 2006, everything was comfortable, and there was no PS3 console yet. So no one expected us to use such a complicated system as Uniclass. We know only your national systems inherited from the communism and the CPV, which I don't understand now. So we created our CRM class platform based on free SQL and our in-house classification list. 2 years later, we know two things. First, digitalization makes sense. Second, we completely didn't know what we should do with the classification system. So we decided to continue using our in-house solution. We built a more comprehensive CRM platform based on Lotus Domino. So we thought it was progressing. Now we know that Warbud was probably one company in the universe that created such a complicated system on this platform. But because we are alone, IBM decided after a few years not support Lotus Domino anymore. After another 6 years, we started implementing an ERP platform with AX Dynamo. We did our homework, so we know that. First, digitalization is okay. Second, we didn't see what classification system we should use. So we gave up using our old in-house list and we created two new ones. We believed that we are very smart. Thanks God and Hochtief, 2017, we received the invitation to found the buildingSMART chapter. Our maturity in international organization wasn't huge, so we made some calls to our friends in Paris and we decided to catch the train. I believe that from that moment our story is more or less familiar. 2018, in my opinion, a critical year for today's meeting. To recognize what buildingSMART is, we visited the buildingSMART Summit, which was in Paris. Lucky, because it is the Vinci headquarters. We were impressed. The new International Fellowship Club was quite friendly for us. They were older than we in the majority. That was another plus. And today I have to say thank you for your determination to Leszek Buchiński, because I'm sure that our team would be different without this person. So let's back to the buildingSMART Summit. The first day was the speech titled Classification System in France. And I discovered that they don't know what they should do with this topic. But they have had the plan. Next days I found that mostly no one in Europe is happy with the classification system. I was sure that we were in a good society, so we founded buildingSMART Poland. In 2019 we received permission to work from our authorities. More or less today is our anniversary. One of the first things was establishing a productROOM with similar targets that I saw in Paris. It was June. And we had a plan also. We started 20 people and through 1 year we grew to 60. We share 4 GB documents. Next year we were familiar with CCS, COCLASS, CCI and other acronyms. And today we made our first step. We created our first recommendation and we joined your gang. I attached the picture document from Prague because I envy their support from the government. At the end, if I could tell you about my next dream. Last year, many standards connected with Bim, but almost no one understands them as I didn't understand 50 years ago what classification systems are. I want to be close to using all these standards as we are close to creating a common classification system standard today. I hope that you found this story as not boring and not long, and I'm sure that the next one will be more interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacek. Thank you for this introduction. I just give welcome to all colleagues who've joined us some minutes later. We will give now the floor to the Franciszek, who will describe us a little bit the activities of our product room. Franciszek, you are muted.
Yes, one second. Okay.
Okay.
Can you see the screen, the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I suppose all of you already know me, but let me remind you, I'm Franciszek Ićkowski. I work for Saint-Gobain, the producer of construction materials. And I'm also, okay, can you see the screen?
No, it disappeared. We've seen your...
And now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I'm also a member of buildingSMART Poland and the productROOM. Together with Anna, we are representatives to Construction Classification International Collaboration. And well, today I'm going to say more about our activities of productROOM, of what has already been done by our team. But to begin with, I just wanted to show you our members of buildingSMART Poland and the productROOM. As you may see, market is represented widely in buildingSMART. We may find here, of course, producers, general contractors, non-profit organizations, technical universities, and well, and more. Like it was said by Jacek, productROOM was the first room to establish, and it was established in 2019. And the main goal for our team was to recommend a BIM classification for Polish construction market. And what has already been done? Point number one, well, during our meetings and discussions between architects, between general contractors and producers, we found that among BIM reality in Poland exists parallel reality. What does it mean? It means that instead of single BIM model, we have few smaller models. Instead of schedule and cost planning, we have independent building projects for costs, for time schedule, for delivery. General contractor prepare separated building project with general contractor internal standards. And finally, there is adjustment phase where all of those previous information are adjusted for facility management needs. And what's obvious, this situation leads us to extra time, extra costs. And we think that to avoid this parallel reality, to get things sorted out, we need to establish and to promote for our market single BIM classification. We also, during our meetings, we also analyzed BIM classifications such as the Uniclass, the Omniclass, CCS as well. As you may see, we have here analysis translated to Polish done by our colleagues from Czech Republic. So Jarosław, thank you again for the work you and your team have done. It was really useful to us. And the conclusion was to choose CCI classification for further works. One of many steps was to take part in the co-class organizational meeting in December 2019. Yes, as we may see, it's pre-COVID, pre-masks meeting. So, well, it seems to be far away from us today. Nevertheless, I suppose many things actually started there. Since then, we were in touch with Jan Saar, and actually our entering to the coalition started, I suppose, there. Also, our room have this BIM classification pilot project, where the use of CCS for general contractor needs is checked. We will hear more from David Fetko about this pilot project. I just only mention main goals. So it was checking the consistency and completeness of the classification, identifying benefits of using a common classification, checking the possibility of using classified models for costs estimation and valuation. Well, what advantages and disadvantages bring us the classification, and to identify technical problems and software limitation during the process of making the project or constructing the building. Another pilot project which we are highly interested in to take part in it is National Contractor Estimator pilot project for Drywall branch, which is mainly done by Polish Gypsum Association, and it's in relation to National Contractors Estimator, those catalogs, which are widely used by general contractors to do cost evaluation. And the disadvantage of those catalogs is that they are a little outdated right now, and there's a chance to update them, update the timing of how much time is needed to construct some objects on the construction site. And well, that's the great opportunity to combine those parameters somehow with BIM classification. We hope to choose CCI. We want to choose, we promote to take CCI classification for this project. As we may see, this is software called Norma Expert. On the left screen, we may see this relation with a BIM model and marked walls, just right here. And on the right side, we may see, that's the screen of the same software, the screen with properties of those walls. Those properties are in relation with the usage of material, the time that is needed to construct the object, which is in this example is wall, and of course relation to classification. That's only a pilot, so Uniclass was chosen for this example, but we want to, like I said, to take CCI classification for this project. And what are main goals for this project is simply tidy up the market of materials, establish the budgeting path for other construction branches in Poland, and hopefully get rid of several cost valuations like we see here. We'll see what the future brings about this project. And well, some other goals. We producers are in cooperation with GS1 association, and we want to get things sorted about our materials to have this relation between our products and global identifying numbers. We think it's necessary to have this process of BIM fully digitized. And what's more about the future? Well, we hope our collaboration would be fruitful. We are ready to exchange our experiences, information. We would love to have common CCI classification here in our part of Europe, and maybe not only here. We would like to develop our economy and market together with you. So we are ready for this cooperation. And well, thank you for your attention. I hope it's gonna be a little bit better about BIM standards too when we see this picture. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Franciszek. Your timing is perfect. So, David, are you ready? Could you start with your presentation?
Yes, I'm ready. Hello, everyone, once again. Before I start, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm David Fetkov. I'm working in Mostostal Warszawa as a BIM team coordinator. And today I will present you our small journey in pilot project, which we launched in productROOM. So now I will share my screen and turn off my camera. Please give me a signal that you can see my screen.
Yes, we see you. We can see you,
okay.
David.
In advance, I'm sorry for my voice because I have a little problems nowadays, but hopefully it will be not a big problem for you. So as I said, today I want to talk about the pilot project that we launched as a part of productROOM. The initiative was established by 3 general contractors that are members of buildingSMART Poland, Mostostal, Hochtief, and Warwood. And we additionally supported by producers of building materials operating in the room. I will start by presenting the genesis of and the reasons why we start such a project. The work at productROOM began with the analysis of various classification systems and presentation about them, and the indication of the direction in which we want to develop our further recommendation in the field of classification system. For now, we are sure that we should support and recommend CCIC. So there is that for now. The pilot project is an initiative that was created in order to test developed knowledge and checked in practice what we already know in theory, and to equalize knowledge in the field of classification systems in all of the participants. The main field of interest is to use classification systems related to the activities such as bill of quantities, schedule, and budget. In the first step at the kickoff meeting, we started with establishing the scope and goals for this project. As a result, we have established that in a first phase of iteration of the project, we want to achieve these goals, which you can see on the screen, and already Franek told you about this. We also make some assumptions because the potential different development paths of the project, it has been divided into stages. After each stage, the project must be consulted with productROOM participants. The steering committee of productROOM will decide whenever the result of the project meets the productROOM objectives. And last assumption is that the pilot project will focus on the use of the models at the stage of the tendering and schedule preparation created by general contractors. This mind map shows you our proposed scope of this project. I will tell you of each point a few words, and in presentation I will explain this in details. Since classification is one of the components of use cases that we have in a scope of this project, it cannot function without appropriate and agreed practice modeling and agreed properties. So at the beginning we start with a reference model, which we use. The next step was to choose a pilot project from a real investment. We decided to use model from realized investment by Mostostal Warszawa. And in the next steps, we added classification to them and wanted to check the classification use in practice. Also, we wanted to make takeoffs while testing the various solutions and creating instruction for different software solution during the project. We also decide that at this stage we are not able to translate the classification and the supported documents into Polish, and to not make this project much longer that is needed, we are not focused on identification of phases, actors, and information flow during whole the process. At the end, we like to publish some final products, which are this reference model I was mentioned before in ICF format, and this reference model will include classification systems which we use in this pilot project, and also require connections of elements which is required to achieve our goals. Also, we like to share our classified pilot project models. Also, we like to share quantity takeoffs based on these models and pilot project offer based also on models. Also, we like to share reports, advantages of using common classification, lack of consistency and completeness of the classification if it is a case, identified problems of the pilot project, and comparison of work in selected programs which we used. And now I will show you in details these tasks which we already complete. A reference model, which I mentioned, has been created, and it includes connections between between elements. Thanks to that, we agree these connections. We can make takeoffs from this model, and we can show general contractors perspective on this topic, how we like to receive this model from designers or investor. Additionally, the model contains the rules of correct exports from native software and parameters required to take off from this model. we can see already that even that simple models presented to the wider audience can significantly improve operation in area of taking measurements from the model. Also, we like to extend the scope of this model. So in the future, we are planning to add such element like assembled walls, steel elements, prefab elements, and MEP elements. And we already started thinking how to do this. The next step was to slightly adjust the models, which we have from the realized constructed investment by Mostostal. So here you have some details about this project, and here's a photo from the end of the construction and photos from drone during the construction. What is important is that in the model we already have used the internal classification prepared by ourselves as a general contractor, and we also had the link to the budget items. So additionally, we can compare them to the other classifications. Generally, during tendering process, we have three different situations. First situation is where we don't have any model, but we need to use classification. Second case is that when we create our internal model and we adding classification in the native files, and then we export them to the IFC. And third case is when we get the model and add the classification in the IFC models. And in our project, pilot project, we focus on this third case. So we also tested a few software based on working on IFC. Of course, at the end, we like to receive model from the market with a classification included in this model. And as I say, the process of further process with working with this model is after we receive the model in IFC, we need to analyze and check the models. After that, we need to add classification. Then we can perform a quantity takeoff, and at the end, we can prepare the budget. So we reproduce this procedure during a pilot project. We began with in the preliminary work during mobilization phase, if I can say. It was such a stage. So we checked our models. We share issues and comments according to the model via BCF format on a platform which supports BCFs. And after that, we add the classification. We tested a few solutions. All of them can do this can do this task, but there is some limitations because, for example, in ASPIM, we need to add classification every time when there is an update in a model. But it's possible, and I think it's very important for us because then we don't need to use native files. We can focus on IFC. So here we have a result of adding this classification to the model. Here we can see a CCS classification. We also add to this model a uniclass. And after that, we could take off quantities from the model based on this few classifications. So each company involved in this project perform own quantity takeoffs. We do this in different way to compare these ways of quantity takeoffs. So here you can see a Varwood approach, and here you can see Mostosa approach, and we also additionally tried to reproduce table of investor, and we like to check if we are able to fulfill this with a classification added to the models. And here you can see the comparison of different classification systems added to the model. And after that, it was first phase of this pilot project. We had some internal conclusions. We showed the results to the product room, and we agreed that there is a need for further actions. So first of all, there was a need to translate of tech documents, which is already done, and it helped us also to include our conclusions and compare them to the Czech documents. We think the preparation or access to the documentation with instructions how to use specific classifications is a main goal in further actions, because without that it's really hard to recommend something to the market. And we think it's very important to identify the participants and problem they need to resolve by using classification. So we need to identify more use cases. The result of the work will be based on a reference model, and we will present general contractor point of view during the next steps. And we also think the preparation of instruction to such programs we were used will be continue in other technical room. Also, according to the classification, we have a few conclusions. We think one classification will not solve every problem because it depends of the use cases or Bim uses in the project. So it's better to assume that we will use one main classification and we can attach others, for example, internal ones to this main classification. So it's a main thing to have one global classification, and then we can compare them or map this classification to the internal ones. As I say, we compare our conclusions to the Czech documents, and we have consistency in a few of conclusions. The solution should be supplemented with methodological documents. Also, the solution must standardize the terminology used. The solution must be clear and understandable at the same time. And this solution must be methodologically complex. Yeah, so there is that. And as I say, none of the classification system is perfect. Each classification system is unique in something, and the purpose of applying the classification system is crucial. For now, it's all what I like to say, and in the next steps we will I think have additional conclusions according to our pilot project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I'm sorry for your voice efforts, but I think that it was really interesting for all of us. Okay, that's all for Polish team. I would like to invite Jan to his presentation about, I suppose, about collaboration, CCI collaboration in general, but we will see.
Yes, thank you, Anna. I have a quick question for David as well before I start my presentation. The reference model you showed, is that somewhere publicly available we can also have a look at?
Not yet, but we will publish this for sure. Yeah.
Okay, because it will be
after our meeting. I can send this to you.
Yeah, because we had a similar project we just finished in Estonia, where we created reference models for the public client's Bim requirements, and I immediately saw a very similar approach. So it would be interesting to compare them. I can also send you the links to our models, which actually already include the CCI to some extent. But yeah, okay. I will share my screen now. I have some slides as well. Hopefully you can see my slides.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, okay. So as Anna already mentioned, I am, she put it very bluntly, saying I'm the boss but of CCIC, but not really. I'm just the guy coordinating the efforts as the chair of the board of trustees, and the trustees are actually the boss. So my main job is at the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications for Estonia, and there I'm head of digital construction. But since this is a buildingSMART meeting, I think it would be important to emphasize that I'm also on the board of directors for buildingSMART International. But yeah, but today we're talking about CCI, the international collaboration. I will try and be quick by giving you a picture of the journey so far. Many of you know this already, but some maybe not so much. So we started in 2018 with in Estonia, and we had a government agenda to find a classification system, because I think we are all, as we know now, in very similar situation where we don't have, strong established classification systems, especially in the eastern part of Europe, and in Estonia as well. We started looking for, well, we have a lot of initiatives and projects to digitize construction. It is a strategic objective for the government of Estonia and the industry. But to do that, to enable a lot of this digitization, we need to find a common language how to exchange data. And for this, we started a project to find this common language, a classification system. And of course, it won't solve everything, but we still need a classification system to give a holistic picture. It should be based on international standards, of course, developed for a fully digital process. So these were the requirements we set out for the classification system when we started this project. And we should cover both the houses and the infrastructure, not just focusing on one or the other, because there's really nowhere any house that doesn't have a road or some utility network leading to it. And all the roads and utility networks, they lead to somewhere, which is usually a building or a construction of some sort. So you have to look at them as a complex and not make such strong differentiation as we see in many cases today in Estonia and abroad as well. And of course, the system should support the full life cycle, not just focusing on one part of the construction or the design, but also the building management, facility management, and in the end, the renovation or demolition. And this is becoming more and more important as the European Commission has started this digital and green transition, the Green Deal. And we're talking a lot about circular economy, reuse of materials. So I think that's in the coming years, we will see more and more focus on the latter part, actually, of the building life cycle. and looking for data in digital form about buildings and adding new data. But all of that means we have to classify it somehow. And so we started this international collaboration, at first with the Nordics, our Baltic neighbors, of course, and other European countries. And we soon discovered that our friends in Czechia had done already a lot of work, and it was already referenced in the previous two presentations, that they had studied the classification systems out there, and in many ways using the same criteria and the same goals as we. So we teamed up with them, and we started looking and started working together. So and in the process, we formed a kind of team, an international team, starting collaboration on solving the same issue. We signed a letter of intent, and in this team we had, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, Czechia, Denmark, and Norway. So very focused on the Nordics, because it's not a secret that Estonians kind of want to consider them as part of the Nordics, but I'm not sure if the Nordics consider us part of that kind of region. But anyway, we are close to them. Our companies are working in Sweden, in Finland, a lot of the construction companies. So obviously the interest for us was to find something maybe similar to the Nordics, but not limiting. But the results of the study from Czechia and from our own project team showed that there's really two classification systems that come out on top, and one of them was CoClass, and the other was CCS from Denmark, and that's why it's only logical that these we teamed up with these guys in Sweden, especially, to try and find a solution. We had set in that letter of intent some core principles, and in addition to the core principles we had already in our government agenda in Estonia, we also added that it has to be, of course, free, without any licensing fees. And we had a seminar, one of the biggest international seminars, in December of 2019, together with the UBIM task group. And there was a lot of interest, of course, and there we presented our work as in many ways linked to CoClass, because we saw in the beginning that CoClass would be maybe the best option when we started in 2018. But in the end, since our requirement, or one of the main principles in our letter of intent and in our markets, is that the classification system has to be free to use by everybody, that was not the case with CoClass. And then they were really supportive. They wanted to enable the use without any licensing fees, the use of CoClass, I mean, but unfortunately they were tied too much with their own internal contracts with participants and stakeholders in Sweden, and it was practically impossible for them to kind of give away some part of the CoClass developments for an international audience for free. So that's why we shifted our focus from CoClass and to our Danish friends. And as a result, in 2020, so I'm jumping forward quite quickly, in September, we established a new legal entity, a non-profit legal entity in Brussels called Construction Classification International Collaboration. And why we started a new non-profit? Because the collaboration that we already had going didn't have any organization linked to it. We really started from the roots, from the ground up. This cooperation with other countries, experts, doing seminars, workshops, sharing our studies, our research, and in essence, for that you don't need an organization. But if we think about the classification system and the fact that we want it to be free, we had to ensure that there is a way to keep the system free and open and very, well, let's put it like democratic. So it would be shared, the ownership and the responsibility of governance, strategy, and IP. And these are the main reasons why we started a non-profit organization, and to give it more, more weight, more authority, a legal body that you can turn to. So, so these are maybe the core reasons why we have the legal entity, so that there would be some coordinating element on an international level, and that we could keep the system free and develop it collaboratively. And we copied actually the management model from already other working standardizations organizations like ICMS, IFRS, if that's familiar to anybody. And the main idea is that there's no money held or transacted. So we decided that, this is a collaborative platform. And well, as soon as you start collecting money, you bring in a lot of problems, a lot of issues. Unfortunately, that's what money does. So we decided that, let's keep this as a bring your own beer kind of party. So every participant has to be responsible for their own costs, and we won't be centrally kind of collecting or distributing any funds. At least that's what we have right now in the bylaws and as our core principle. And if you think about the standard itself, I think you guys are already quite familiar with it. It of course follows ISO 12006 and 81346 tables, and of course it's got additions from the Danish CCS. And I have some slides I borrowed from Gunnar. I'm just quickly going to check. Gunnar, do you have plans on showing these slides yourself? If you have, I'm going to skip them.
I'm showing them, but you're welcome to.
No,
that will shorten my presentation.
But you do a much better job of presenting these, actually.
Oh, thank you. You do what you want.
So I will skip ahead from these slides and go maybe straight to this one. I'm just going to talk a little bit about this one. Are you going to show this one as well, Gunnar?
No.
Okay, perfect. So we share the slides,
yes,
evenly. So Gunnar's going to talk about the development on the technical level and from the Denmark side. And this picture shows the management model we have envisioned for CCI, CCI collaboration. The idea is that we have the core tables, the core classification system is managed by CCI collaboration and its technical committee. But from this, every member, every country is free to adopt the system and expand it to whatever their market needs are. And from this kind of feedback in each member state, in each market, we will be able to then develop the core based on the needs of that. So as you see, we have here already Czech, Estonia, Denmark, and actually also Sweden is on this picture, because CoClass itself is part of also originating from the same source as CCI, and it's very similar. They just have some differences. But this is, for example, the Estonian version of CCI, and it's called CCI-EE. And as you see here, the main framework of ISO 12006, the parts in green, the boxes like build space, construction entity, functional systems, these are coming from this international core tables. But we have also expanded the system, and we have 9 local tables added to the classification system, and they have the same structure, same logic. So they're following actually the same system as the core tables, but they're originating some from other international standards, some from maybe a bit local standards, and this is something we can develop and discuss collaboratively in the future, of maybe some part becoming a core of the international standard at some point. But for now, we have fixed that we have 6 core tables, the most important ones. And regarding the others, it's open for everybody to develop that. But you don't have to invent every wheel yourself, and neither have we. So many of these other parts you see here in yellow and in red are actually also coming from our Danish friends, and we've used their experience in CCIC to develop that. But we are now implementing this system in the government, mainly the building registry, which is handling all the building permits in Estonia, and is the repository for built environment data, official government built environment data. And we also have, as I already briefly mentioned, the Bim requirements, the Bim standard. We are developing in Estonia, which actually has been used for years and years already by state real estate, but we are now putting it into a more generic form. And we also created template models, and in those BIM requirements, we are also putting in CCI codes for elements. And we are starting another project for this year to help with the implementation of the system. So the first project we had from 2018 to the end of 2020 was really to find and develop a system that we can use. But we see also that it needs government support for implementation. And we are going to work with a lot of public clients to help them to implement that. Also do some trainings, some learning materials, and technical development also regarding CCI. But what's the next steps for the international collaboration? Of course, number one on our agenda is actually to expand membership, because I think the system will live and will gain traction and speed if it is used. And the more it is used, the more difficult it will become, of course, to collaborate and agree on developments. That is for sure. But this is something we have to discuss anyway, and I think there's a lot of benefit we get from this kind of open shared collaboration, since we can discover some issues, mistakes earlier, learn from others, and in the end have a more international system in all of our countries. And we have interest, of course, from several countries, organizations in several countries. We've been in talks a lot with Finland from the very beginning, Latvia, Slovenia, Portugal has shown quite a bit of interest lately. Sweden actually as well. We are hoping that KOKLAS or Svensk Byggtjänst will join our collaboration at some point. We're not yet sure when that will happen, but there is interest from their side and from market players in Sweden actually. And the second task of the CCI international part is to manage the development of the core tables. And this is done by the technical committee. And we are, of course, focusing on the needs and following the feedback from implementation, from pilots from each countries. And the third point is collaboration with other international organizations. And as me and Yaroslav are working closely with the EU BIM task group, that's one of the organizations we are very closely collaborating with. But through the EU BIM task group, also the European Commission actually. And I'm sure, well, it's too early to tell whether or not we need on a European scale this classification system, a common one, or whether it will be established or not. but you can be sure that if there's going to be discussion about a European kind of level classification system, we want to be at that table. So that's why we're very close and keeping an eye on the developments there. We're not pushing anything, but we are open and we are sharing everything we're doing. And also, of course, buildingSMART and 10 and ISO. But I think with the standards organizations, it's more up to the member states to represent who are already, like Gunnar is involved, Yaroslav, you guys are involved probably in many of the SEN groups to work on that. And yeah, I think that's it from my side. So thanks for the attention, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Jan. So yeah, it was really interesting for me because we are not from the beginning with you, so I've learned a lot of new things, and this is now time for Gunnar.
Thank you very much, and I will try also to both get you back and get you updated. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Gunnar Friborg. I'm from a knowledge construction knowledge institute organization in Denmark called Molio. It used to be called BIPS 3 or 4 years ago. We have been actively working since 2007 and 8, both in ISO and buildingSMART productROOM, but we have also been involved in the CEN TC 442 since it started 4 or 5 years ago. I'm the chair of the Danish Bim Committee in Danish standards, and I also try to have the chair in our technical committee in CCIC. I think mainly because I have been one of the people working with the principles of CCI from the beginning. So let's start out there. It will be an introduction to these topics, the classification, development, and standards behind CCI, the classification and the RDS identification system itself, only a very few points. Then I will shortly talk about the use of CCS, also CCI in Danish projects and for maintenance. And when I say CCS and CCI, it's actually the same, because CCS is the first Danish 2 versions of it, and CCI is the latest international version of the classification system that we are also now introducing full scale in Denmark. And I will say a little about Danish infrastructure development. I'll probably not be able to talk about classification and data models and IFC experiences, but I have additional slides and you can study them afterwards. Okay. When we started out in the beginning, we have had a tradition for having digital collaboration across the trades in the Danish construction sector. And we tried to make the first classification project for digital project material back in 1997 for 2 or 3 years. We didn't achieve any final result. Everybody was fighting each other. Tried to see it their way, but we had a lot of clarifying discussions and ended up with a few conclusions. And then again, we took it up within BIPS, the organization I was into at that time, called in the Digital Construction Initiative by the Danish government. 3D modeling was starting out strong, and we tried to make this classification system now looking more into standards and getting around all the issues of different parties having different interests, but look at the whole life cycle. DBK became a prototype for the later CCS because there were also problems there we didn't solve very well. And then in 11 to 14, we had what we call the Coneco project, and that was the origin of CCS that later became the CCI. And for this the thread project of classification, we got both governmental, Danish governmental, EU regional, and private funding. And then it was also told that everything we made, we should make freely available for everyone. and we have done that ever since, so it's kind of open source. We were also told by the Danish Construction Agency that this is the last chance you get, guys. Look out for international standards and digital development in other sectors, so please learn from those and no national perspectives. Thank you very much. So that was our task. So we looked very heavily into the standards, but also we said we have to look at the whole built environment. Like you can see the example here from the island in the Great Belt, combining tunnels, bridges, roads, railways, buildings, landscape, seascape, whatever. It's all kind of what you can build, you actually look at if you want to embrace and be able to sort information. And all these things always meet up in different projects. And also all participants need to work with this in all the life cycle stages, and it should be handled by same type of system, same principles and same working methods, and it should be done by BIM. So we really looked at how to find a way to digitally and object-based use classification for supporting BIM. I will not go through all these, just say that we had a lot of discussions on use cases. People could not say, we want this specific kind of classification, but there was a lot of focus that it should be object-based. It should also be able to sort by properties in the future, do it digitally. It should be could be used collaboratively through the life cycle and coordinate information. And of course, everyone knew and worked already with the IFC model, and we know we could have data exchange done by that. But we needed also to have a user interface to the information. And then it was so important that we looked for standards that already dealt with these problems. So we didn't actually, I get back to that. What have others been doing with classification? You have also shown some of them. I just always use this example with doors, with Uniform that had 32 entries to doors, with OmniClass that through 3 different classification tables have 211 entries to doors. Uniclass has through 3 different tables 44 entries to doors. And we thought at the same time we got involved in the ISO 12006-2 classification standard for revision. And we thought it could be nice to have a worldwide survey on how classification systems are used or not used, and what are the experiences. And we found out that a lot of classification systems were only used by smaller groups of the construction sector, like the consultants, or sometimes it would be the building owners, but it was never used by everyone, because it was always the purpose to serve, for instance, specification or only cost calculation. So by this, it was also a very narrow one. And also we had these classifications that embedded a lot of properties, and we actually wanted to be able to sort by properties. Our users said in the future they would need to have these properties to sort by, so they shouldn't be embedded in classification codes. They had to change all the time in the design process, in the tendering process, in the maintenance process, and then in the construction process. So what we need to say was we had to be very fundamental about this and say, what does CCS and CCI do? A door is just a door. It will remain a door all through its life cycle, unless you cover the opening with something else and it becomes something else. But a door will be a door, and it has a lot of different properties that will change through the life cycle. And we also found that one of the problems with many classifications and the use of them was that they were not unambiguous. So we needed to have class definitions, like the door is a space access object for upright passage by persons. So you are not in any doubt what you have classified. And of course, it needed to have a classification code. We didn't invent this stuff ourselves, and I'll get back to that. Also, you know, and this is taken from Esben Schulte, who's been very active about property standardization in the SEN work. that just a thing like thermal transmittance in IFC is in different areas called different things. So they are not using the same common language. And this needs to be standardized, whether you talk about classification of objects or the naming of properties. So we were aware that there was a problem there, but also that we could meet very different way of saying the same thing about an object, for instance. About the properties, there has been done a very, very nice work in the CEN TC 442 with the lead, and then also with ISO to describe how to handle properties related to classes. And I think one of our big problems around CCS and CCI had been that this standardized way of defining, maintaining, and handling properties was not in place in the beginning. And that had given us rather big problems of implementation of CCS in Denmark. That's changing now, because now we are going to get these standardized properties, and that really solves a lot of these problems. While we were doing the survey and the revision of the 12006 Part 2 standard, we discussed a lot with the whole world about these problems with classification. For instance, in the ICIS knowledge sharing group, we had a project going on about classification, identification, and BIM. I think it's 30-some pages. And we discussed all the issues we had around classification and how to support a BIM use with it. And the thesis of that one was, why isn't classification more widely used for connecting and integrating information within BIM, and could it be in the future? And very many of the problems we tried to solve were addressed in this report. You can read that when you get the presentation. You can just press on the report and you get to where ICIS are containing this publication if you want to be a part of that discussion or see the discussion. And then, as Jan said, I have this slide set that tells you shortly how was the development route or the travel from our early work starting out in 2011 with the third attempt to reach a classification for BIM. The co-class developed in Sweden came afterwards. They tried to do also a Swedish invention themselves and found out that it would be much better to use the standardized principles that we have also been using from the standards. So they built on everything we made and put a lot of extra stuff with infrastructure onto it. And then, as Jans showed, we had the letter of intent between the 6 countries. And then it was decided to have an international version of the CCS and co-class to be the CCI. We call it the CCI core. And Jan showed the Estonian way of expressing that. I have the 12006-2 table here. And we made this collaboration. And the issue of this collaboration is also that we are in between the periods of revising the standards behind, we are able still to be operational and be able to put in new classes in common agreement. And we really need to do that. So just to show shortly the standards behind, when we started out with CCS development, we had these 3 standards we found in the 81346 series that there were really some sectors that had looked into this, also constructing, building things like trains, fabrication units, electricals, big electrical system, power plants, and things like that. We thought, why don't we use these principles? They have actually shown to be very good and also to be able to be digitized. We made this revision, and we also looked into terminology and classification standards within ISO. We participated in further development of the 81346 standards together with Sweden that joined. And then the latest standard that are now under revision or made new are the one I have listed here. The latest is the power plant standard that's being revised and made a new standard. And so it's a very active standard set that's behind the standard sets that's behind this thing. And that's very nice because we have been able to influence with what was needed for the construction sector. And I think we will need also to do that for the infrastructure sector. I will mention that shortly. Let me shortly talk about the classification system and the identification system itself. It is in the user interface situation. It's having a common terminology across disciplines. It's somehow creating taxonomy and ontology for us to talk about the objects the same way. Establishing principles of how to be able to sort and find and do these things digitally, and creating a meaningful user interface. And we have also, with a Danish test project, found out that it's actually could be a very good basis for the development of linked data with meaning, or with organized and meaningful stuff. And at least it gives us a possibility of having an unambiguous, clear digital communication in construction across disciplines. So these tables, this is just extract of tables. Well, what you can see from those tables are that we have preferred terms, but we know that a lot of disciplines could probably call some of them other things. So we also have alternative terms, synonyms, examples, and types. So for instance, in the Molio API, when you look it up, like for instance, a corbel, you'll find out that the preferred term is console, but it's actually defined by the same definition and have the same classification code. So it removes a lot of conflicts and discussions around classification that has been in the past. And you can also find, like the many entries you've seen in Uniclass, Omniclass, and others, some of them are actually giving each of these a class, even if they are very much the same. So it saves a lot of confusion for the construction sector to do it this way, and it's based on ISO standardization principles. We looked at it as systems because actually we are doing systems engineering when we make construction projects, build construction systems. So we have this overall functional systems. We have the technical systems that are more detailed. Typically, you could say the functional systems are very good for making requirements from the client side and the maintenance side. Technical systems are very good for architects and engineers, for instance, to specify things in specification and in modeling. And then we have the components for the very much used by product vendors and contractors. But that's not a limit that every one of them. I know a lot of contractors that use all of it, and I also know a lot of consultants that specify down to the components, and I know clients that maintain on functional systems and technical systems as such. So it can be used by everyone, but it has a logic to it. And this, I will not go into detail with this. I could make a session of its own, but the standards, especially described in 81346 Part 1, describe the possibilities of using different aspects when you look at things. And that's very, very useful because the product aspect is very often used for structural design and architectural design. And the function aspect is very often used by technical installation services systems. And location aspect is not very much used, as we know, in buildings, and so it can be used, but it's not very much used. But when we get to infrastructure, we are in a parallel with the development of buildingSMART infrastructure around alignment, because around alignment you need to identify location spots for something 20 kilometers out there or 200 kilometers out there. And then you have the type aspect that give you the possibility of defining some of the types you need for the project, not having to look up in very big tables like uniclass and omniclass and things like that, but you can just define it with objects that have those 2 or 3 properties that are important to your project and to the one who are going to also put the price on it. So these are important things. So you can use the classification system only with a 1, 2, or 3 letter code, and you can use it more advanced. And I saw some of your Polish examples already try to use some of the advanced possibilities. And we can see that infrastructure in Denmark and other countries are now trying to use, for instance, the location aspect, like you see in the bottom here, to the right, more thoroughly in different ways. So that's very nice. People are getting into the possibilities of the system. So parallel with modeling and data exchange, they give this user interface that could sort the information the right way, both for design, for at the construction side, and for maintenance. And how is it used in Denmark? Well, it's implemented in more than 20 software tools that are in use in Denmark for BIM users. And when I say CCS, it could as well be CCI here. CCS is used within all our Molio tools for data and information to structure and make all use of construction information combined in all the tools we make. We have different access possibilities for users, as for instance, software and like APIs, navigator, database for classes and properties, spreadsheets, etc. CCS has now been used in Danish project for buildings since 2014, so we have a lot of general experience, and some of it is that it gets very structured information in together with the use of heavily use of IFC. We have a very high IFC use in Denmark, so we can combine very easily objects that are shown within models to objects that are specified when they get on the tendering list for bidding and so on. But also it's used heavily now within maintenance of large amounts of buildings and land areas for bigger building owners in Denmark, even the bigger hospitals now. And the updated version of CCI is now being used in test projects for big infrastructure projects. And I cannot get into details of all these types of projects, but just show you very fast down here that we could define these types of construction elements based on some basic properties if we need to do that. That's where we could compare or be competitive with some of the old traditional classification systems if we need that. And we make the price data catalogs also built by CCS classification codes and properties. We do our specifications also using it. Operation and maintenance, and you can see there from Copenhagen University to municipalities to regions with hospitals, Copenhagen Airport to the Danish construction agency. We use them for maintaining our buildings. And we have made an example thing with the whole construction sector of installation services, where they have made examples of how to use this in practice. And it's very, very useful. That has now been changing a very big variety of installation services projects to be much more homogeneous, much more according to the same standard and how to do that. So it's becoming more easily for the contractors in these disciplines to put a price on things. So, and as the last thing, I will tell you that the infrastructure projects now taking place in Denmark, and we also discussed this on a Nordic level, is the Danish Ministry of Defense. The state agency is starting to use CCI and make a business structure around it. The BIM infra test projects, like the railroad authorities are going to make a railroad project doing it. The Danish Road Directorate has already shown the first example of the North Harbour Tunnel in Copenhagen, new big project. and working with it. I have made some sketches for the Fehmarn Belt, and the Fehmarn Belt and the Great Belt Bridge are already using the principle for maintenance and are now converting the first attempts I made to be the CCI way of doing it. So there's a lot of things going on now using the same systems, and that's very nice. So that was, yeah, it was maybe not short, but maybe the shortest I would be able to do.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Your fame of the speaker is well deserved, but it was so interesting that I think that as all the presentation, I think that all our colleagues from Poland especially will be very interesting to having that. Thank you very much. I think that maybe there will be another opportunity to meet you because there is a lot of material to discuss, I think so. So thank you very much. And Jaroslav, our last speaker from Czech Republic, Jaroslav and the Czech Republic was mentioned here already several times. So Jaroslav, you're welcome.
Thank you. I will be really short because we have a lot of time. We have I'm a little bit due around the time schedule, so I will be really short. I will try to add some we call it helicopter view on our actions in Czech Republic, because Jan introduced CCI and the history. Gunnar introduced you the classification system itself, and I will try to put the classification into the common activities and general activities around the BIM, which is going on in Czech Republic. So you can mention what's going on here, and you will see how really the classification is needed, and it's fit inside all the strategy around the public sector using the BIM. My name is Jaroslav Nechyba, and I'm the head of the BIM concept or BIM strategy department on the Czech standardization agency. So I'm the part of the governmental structure. I will be not talking around all information in the slides, so you can read it themselves. I just mention here that we have the national strategy running from the 2018. The key point for us, it's a milestone for the mandatory BIM for the public sector. So it's really important for us that this is the key point, and everybody can focus on the one milestone, and all the activities can be joined together to meet that milestone successfully and use it as we need it. We have lots of cooperation with the state fund of the transport infrastructure, so we are joining together both parts of the construction sector. It's very important for us because it's traditionally divided into two sectors, and we need the common language and share the data and so on. So that's a huge success for us to put those parts together. And right now we are at the stage we are publishing lots of supporting documents. You have here the link on the main website, which we are using to inform the Czech construction sector and all the players on the market. It's just in Czech, but for you as the Polish, you will be able to understand lots of those informations published there. What we are heavily focusing is running the pilot projects program for the public sector, and we are more than happy to run the parallel governmental project with the same milestone, because we join both milestones both together, because we move a little bit our milestone a little bit later for 1.5 years to make the same date for starting the digital building permits, which will be based on BIM digital models as well. Of course, there will be option with the PDFs, of course, but there will be option to use the IFC models as the input for that procedure as well. This slide, I just put it here because sometimes it's nice to look out of the box a little bit, because sometimes we are too much heavily focused on data and data templates and sharing data and so on, and we forgot why we are doing that. So I just put it here, the slide with our vision and mission. We established those words in 2018, and I can sign it right now as well, because it's still valid, and I will really want to underline the last red line, because we cannot forget it's all around the people, because we are again much more focused on technologies and data and so on. But the key factor from my experience decades back in my professional life is we need to focus on people, because they are the key factor which will be needed to have the success. So that's just why I put this slide here. This is the standards, and it's the huge topic for our all actions. It's not just about the classification system. So I just put here on this slide some standards we are using right now, and the activities based on them. For us, it's not just the classifications, and you see the classification system down there, but one of the main topic for us, it's called construction data standards. It's based on the data templates, new standards, and ISO 19650, and the other standards which will be prepared, and so on. So we see those actions really joined together, because the classification system as itself, it's nice to have, but you need always to use it with the other parts to make the digitizing the processes work for the people well. So it's just one of the brick in the wall. It's very important brick, but the goal is much wider. So that's why I put it here on one slide. And again, our main principle is not inventing the wheel. That's the main headline for our actions, because that's why we did that study in 2018. This was one of the first actions when we start, because our department was established in 1st January 2018. So it was one of the first. Our actions was to put on the paper all the knowledge we was able to, or my team was able to put together, closely working with the guys from the university. So I think they did nice work, and it's really for me almost heaven music to hear that it's useful for you as well. So that's why we did it. So that's how it works. And on this slide is just the current action areas, and you can see again the classification is just one of the lines here inside a topic called digital common language, which is heavily based on the use cases. That's one of the actions we are running here very intensively right now, because we need to precisely define all those use cases from the e-government side, from the public procurers, from the market actors like architects, construction companies, facility management agencies, and so on. And everybody have different view on those things, and we need to make, let's say, the map of those use cases, and we need to select the priorities between them, because you can put together. We have, I think, something around 50 items we can put on the list, and you cannot catch all the rabbits at one time. So it's needed to prioritize that list and start with the most important use cases and going down the list. So that's what we are doing. Again, for us, it's very important right now. The activities around the digital building permits, because that's a huge project which is running under the e-government activities, because we have the strategy, the digital, call it digital check, and this is the one of the main activities for the construction market. And again, there is a lots of use cases where classification system CCI can be used, and we are now defining those use cases and starting the evaluating procedure, how to implement CCI into the building permits, into the building registry, into the landscape planning, into the regulation plans, and so on, so on. That's just the part of the use cases which we have right now on the table. And that's very important. We are starting the big ontology project, because we need, of course, when you creating the digital common language is a nice thing, but you have the issue when the humans didn't understand each other, because the architect is Gunnar had the nice slide with the thermal resistance in English. So of course in Czech it's even worse. It's the same language, but when you put together some regulations, technical standards, let's say the common sense used by the people in a real world, when you put all these things together, you find that one thing have several names, and they didn't understand it by the humans. So you cannot digitize this thing. You need to tidy it up first between the humans, and then you can tie it up in the digital data. So the ontology is quite important for us, and put it all together. So that's what we are doing. Of course, again, the digital transformation and again the classification system. It's very important in the digital transformation, because when we did the study, we found two different starting point around the classification. Some of the countries have classification already used by decades in the past, typically the Nordic countries and some of the Western countries, and they are at the point where they need to decide if they will transform the old, let's say, old-fashioned classification systems, which is heavily used and everybody use it, into the digital way, or we found the countries like Czech Republic, like Estonia, which didn't have any this kind of, and they are on the blank paper searching for something as the starting point. And surprisingly, we found that much easier position was ours, because when you have nothing, it's easy to decide what you can use it, but it is much harder to explain to people they should start using classification, because they didn't use it in the past, and they still live. Yeah, they build the buildings, they get their money from the invoices. The company have the profits, and they didn't need classification. So why you need to start dealing with something like that called classification system? So there are different challenges. And so we see it as the social environment as well, because that's why we feel it as the challenge. Yeah, because one again, it's the technical or the procedure, but we feel it much more the social environment, like to explain the market why they should use something, and it's for their good, but they didn't understand it right well. So that's fun. That's what we are doing, and that's what we are heavily investing in educations and public relations and so on, to explain those things. So that's really the, let's say, helicopter view overview over the activities which we are doing. So we are doing much more than just be focusing on classification. Again, it's from our point of view, it's very important brick in the wall, but we need to build the whole wall. So there are much more bricks to work it together. So I feel that's all from my side, because we are running the time as well. So
yeah, thank you very much, Jaroslav. Thank you very much. I didn't receive any questions by chat, but I hope that you have some questions, some comments, so you are more than welcome to ask.
Maybe I will ask a question to Gunnar, because, well, during your presentation, you told us that you do also specifications. Do you use some kind of application for those specifications, or you simply do this manually? How this process looks like? Can you tell us more?
We have a Molio have a specification system that is just based on Word files, but it's right now being transformed within the next 1.5 years to a more digitally based one, where all construction elements will be numbered with CCS and CCI, and also we will try to put in some of the standardized properties we know exist, and some of the Danish properties we use in our Danish practice. I don't think we are not very advanced at that area. I know countries that are much more advanced in that area, but we are working on it.
Okay.
But we have been focusing very much of getting nearer to have standardized properties as things we can put into specification and use both there and in models and in calculation and maintenance and so on. So across different platforms for information management.
Okay.
Any other questions? Another comments? Don't be ashamed.
I can maybe add one thing about infrastructure. We have identified both in the Danish and Nordic context, but also more general and within the CCI discussions in the technical committee, that there is a need for the top table, the functional systems table, to have a domain-specific table for infrastructure. And if we're going to do that, we can do the preparation work within the CCI, but I think we need then, when we have done that with all those different groups I just mentioned, maybe in a year or two to take it into a standard. Like we have the power plant standard, we have the building standard within 81346, because infrastructure top systems are different from buildings, of course. So if you have dialogue with infrastructure people in Poland, you should know that this is a topic we need to address.
I have the question from Rigi. So Rigi, go on, and then I will. There is some comment from Adam, but Rigi, if you want to ask question live, go on.
Thanks, Anna. I would like just to add the information that in Czech Republic we also have effort to help with testing and developing domain-specific table for infrastructure. And if you will have some similar effort in Poland, please do not hesitate and contact me. My contact information is in a mail list, so I will be glad to cooperate and share the knowledge which we discover with you to force this, because it's quite important topics, thanks to the fact that infrastructure are quite a large piece of construction industry. Thanks.
Thank you, Iji, and I confirm that we collaborate with Iji already, and if you want to contact in any way Iji, you can do it also by contacting me. The question of infrastructure, it's another question, big question. We have, as I said during our meetings in collaboration, we are starting our infra room, so I think that there will be the opportunity to join another people from Poland to our collaboration. Jaroslav.
I just want to a little bit correct what Jiří already said. Jiří is my colleague and my expert, which is a representative in our technical committee, and I think the right way how the information should flow it's because you as the Poland are the members of the CCIC and the technical committee. So I think the right flow of the information should be through you, Anna, and the buildingSMART. So you should collect those information and bring them all together to the technical committee than just communicating one by one. I think it should be a much better way how to cooperate. It's just I want to mention that. Yeah, it's very important to collect those ideas and those informations from on the national side and then bring it all together. Yeah, it's just a comment on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will, Gunnar, before your comment, I will just read the comments or questions of Adam. I suppose Adam Glema. There were interesting presentations from several countries. What about the language that documents and reports are used in different countries? As I know, the Danish classification was widely used in Denmark and in Danish. Majority of examples and analyses come from Nordic, Baltic countries and Czech. Yeah, and I think I see that Jan gave the answer, partly an answer to Adam, that CCI Estonian is in Estonian and English.
That's the table, but the research itself, the studies, those are unfortunately in Estonian. Mm-hmm. But there was a really good study done by the Nordic Road and Rail BIM Association. I will put a link of that here in the chat as well, which is in English and gives a kind of general perspective on different systems used in and around Europe.
Yeah, something more from Adam. What about Western countries? Could you comment about native documents and knowledge on situation in Germany, France, Spain, Italy?
Well, that was what I was going to comment about. There's a lot of classification discussions going on in different countries, also in France and other countries. And I know that some of the countries already have very old classification systems they have been using for a very long time. And they have a lot of information attached to those systems. And I think we, for a very long time, will have to live with different classification systems for different purposes. And we have to find out how to deal with that in modeling and other stuff. And I think that's okay. I know the group working with the ISO 12006 Part 3, that is the fundament of the buildingSMART data dictionary and on ontology library and terms and properties. They are working also with the linked data semantic web thing, and I have maybe been a little bit too fast criticizing that we just try to make digital and put electricity to data to old systems and old ways of thinking, analog classification systems and things like that. But of course, for a mapping perspective, when you have that lot of information, it could be useful to be able to do that. But I think on the long-term basis, it's more interesting to be more object-oriented, more object-based in your thinking, because that's really supporting the digitalization and the development of that, and to be able to look at information through properties instead of classification codes. I think that's the way to move forward, but because then we can do much better simulation. We can use it on different software platforms and things like that. But there's a lot of things going on, but it's a bit muddy, and you can read very different reports. I have seen some of them. Some of them are quite good. Some of them are of a quality I'm not so happy about. But I will not mention names or countries.
What about the Phil Jackson report? Should I delete the comments right now?
No, I think Phil Jackson made a very good report. I had also the opportunity to speak with him for 2 hours in Paris, and he ripped everything of CCS and CCI away from me in 2 days, and he actually used it in the report. So I'm happy with that report, I must say. But he was very critical about stuff, and I think he was good. And he also had the focus on what can semantic data and linked data do for us in the future. But it's very much in the future, and we know big industries like the Airbus industry had taken the 81346 principles and used them for both their airplanes. 70% of objects in an airplane are the same as in buildings and infrastructure. And they used them for all their 5 production sites all over Europe. And they said that was in part of the strategy of digitalizing their whole information management around Airbus. And I think if they do it, they said they waited for that kind of thing for 20 years, but they haven't invented it themselves. So they were happy there was somebody who invented stuff.
No.
So, yeah.
Jaroslav, you are about to asking something else, or okay?
Sorry, I forgot to put.
No problem. We have the comment from Tommy Hentinen, and I have to say that it's a great pleasure to have you here during this meeting. I know that. You've been one of the reasons and one of the supporters of Building Smart Poland formation. So I think that it's not our last meeting, and there will be an opportunity to meet you live in Poland, maybe during the local Building Smart Poland conference. We don't know if this year it will be possible, but hope so. And Tommy just added that the study that Jan refers to is published also by Building Smart International. Any other comments?
I have a question. Actually, since Tommy is already online with us, maybe he can comment a bit what's going on in Finland, because I know there's a lot of activity regarding classification there as well. Are you joining CCIC anytime soon, Tommy? I know I'm putting you on the spotlight and being blunt.
Yeah, and they have so many classification systems in Finland. You're being tough now.
I will understand if you won't unmute yourself, Tommy.
Yes, you are here also from Finland, so thank you that I can participate in this meeting, but I like to Jaroslav classification that there is old classification countries and new classification countries, and if you are thinking why to use classification, we are thinking why to change to another classification, and I like that Gunnar has some reasons to make that. So I try to explain that also in Finland.
We have Tommy.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the phone. There was a question. Of course.
Maybe, and you will repeat.
It was a very provocative question, Tommy, regarding what's the situation in Finland regarding classifications. Have you made any progress decisions, and when will you be joining CCIC?
Very good question. I am a bit out of that loop, to be honest, at the moment. So I don't know. This is the Building Foundation Center is sort of responsible for the classification systems here in Finland, and since I haven't been I left buildingSMART as a chair of buildingSMART. I left that position last autumn, which is only like 3 months ago. But still, I think the new building. I haven't left buildingSMART. That's not the case. But we changed. Tarmo Savolainen is the new chair, and I'm now more or less focusing in standards and standardization work within buildingSMART and SEN and ISO. But the new buildingSMART organization, which is sort of in formation at the moment, there is a new legal entity that has been established some time ago. There's a plan. I know that there's a plan that will take care of the classification system. At least there has been discussion. I don't know actually the details, but that has been the discussion. So probably if that's sorted out, maybe that will also sort of speed up the development of classification systems here in Finland. But I don't know if Jan probably knows that there is at the same time we have the new land use and construction law, which is under development, and there will be lots of requirements coming from that side. So especially to BIM, and we are already sort of trying to get sort of the international attention to we have been studying the items in Finland. We are trying to get the international attention also to the requirements, and they are related to classifications as well, because there are some things that we are not able to do with BIM yet, because of some limitations with existing standards. But maybe that's another seminar, that topic.
No.
But maybe I can advertise a bit that we are at the moment in the building. I'm in the steering committee of buildingSMART International regulatory room, and we are at the moment putting together a project. So we are writing an activity proposal for regulatory information requirements, and we are planning to engage this project within next 2 months, I guess. So that's something that if you are interested in this subject, then just you can send me an email or contact Nick Nisbet, who is the regulatory room leader.
I think that from buildingSMART Poland there will be a big interest, but because I have to say that we have quite active legal room, so I think that we can join the project.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
We will hopefully get somebody from Estonia as well.
You have already. Christopher is in our editorial.
Oh yeah, right. There was there's so many different projects ongoing. I can't remember all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? We are about to finish, but if there is some suggestions from your side, as I said, we will try to organize another meeting just to attract another stakeholders from Polish market. So there will be some, how to say, there will be some repetitions. Okay, Franciszek, just a moment. But I think that I would like to say that especially for our Polish colleagues, if you have any comments, any questions, the works within the CCI collaborations are going now. So if you are some kind of proposal, don't hesitate to contact us. And Franciszek.
Well, I just wanted only to add that today in Poland we have Fat Thursday, so we are obliged to eat a donut, at least one. So keep it in mind and have a sweet day as well.
Oh, no, Franciszek, why you reminded me that?
Oh, we have the same thing next week on Tuesday in Estonia. It's, yeah, Vaslapäev in Estonian. So, but I'm gonna have the donut today as well because they're so good, and you can only eat them during this small period in time of the year.
That's right.
Okay, so as I don't see any comments, any questions more, I propose. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us, guys.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Participants.
Thank you. Bye.
I think that see you soon. I think I will send all the presentations to all the participants. So
Yeah, we will
Great.
send it.